Oh, how's it going, everybody? We're back for another edition of All In, where I'll pick an artist and I'll listen to the entire discography and give my thoughts on it. And the rules go kind of like this. The artist in question must have 5 or more studio albums. Cover albums can count. I generally don't talk about live or acoustic albums unless the songs are original to that form, but this week those rules are all out the window. Why, do you ask? Well, in case you didn't see by the title in this video, we're going to do Ozzy Osbourne, Part 3. Not only are we going to talk about Back to the Beginning, but we're also going to talk about more of a tribute as well. So, I just recorded this video like a week ago and was going to launch it later on, and then the unfortunate death of Ozzy Osbourne just happened on July 22nd. It is the 24th of July now as I'm taping this, so 2 days ago as I'm taping this, we lost him. And before I get into the Back to the Beginning, kind of my thoughts on his passing and everything, I feel like after he did this concert, I feel like he held out to do this last show, one last hurrah, and then after he accomplished his goal, then he was done. And I feel like he held out and did that, he knew his end was near and he wanted one last hurrah, which I'm cool with. He went out on top, It's like we got a tribute before his passing, which was really awesome. And of course, as you know, I'm a big fan of Ozzy's. Always loved the music, and yes, I do love the TV show as well, The Osbournes. Real funny stuff from the early 2000s. Definitely check it out, especially unedited. Some funny shit. But it's been a crazy week, we got another year of the summer of death, because we just found out today that Hulk Hogan also passed away, so rest in peace to him as well. But yeah, let's move on to Back to the Beginning, and I'll give sort of my final thoughts on it, and of course, more final thoughts about Ozzy in general. So, we did do Part 1, the Sabbath years, and Part 2, the solo years. I'll put links down below to that because I give them the detail on every album and just about every track that he did in those times. But it amazes me that this man right here single-handedly started an entire genre of music. If it weren't for Ozzy and Black Sabbath, we wouldn't have metal. Or if we did have metal, it would have started way later. I don't know, but any rock band you listen to today, it doesn't matter if it's Disturbed, Godsmack, Lamb of God, Alice in Chains, whoever, it all stems back to Ozzy. You can't deny that. Love him or hate him, you can't deny it. And so going back to the beginning, so this show took place on July 5th of 2025 in Birmingham, England. So, hometown of Black Sabbath, right where it all began. And they got and this is the Ozfest of all Ozfests here. Many popular bands in the act, and they even did a couple of little super groups too with, many popular band members from other bands. So it covers from today's rock all the way back to there was even a member of the Rolling Stones in one super group. So we're covering 6 decades here. So I guess we'll start off. We're going to talk about Mastodon. They started off the whole set, the whole entire concert. So they started off with their song Black Tongue, then they did Blood and Thunder, and then they covered Black Sabbath's Supernaut. And then moving on after that, we get Rival Sons, sort of an alternative take on it here. They do Your Worst, and then they did a cover of Electric Funeral. Real cool cover, definitely an interesting take on it. And then moving on, we got one of the big four here. We got Anthrax. They performed Indians, and they also did a cover of Into the Void. Yeah, real cool stuff there. And then, after that, we have a local favorite of ours, Hailstorm. They hail from York, PA. They were on this stage. Real honor to see a PA band on that stage. But anyhow, they do Love Bites, So Do I. They do Rain Your Blood on Me, and they end it with their cover of Perry Mason. And then, moving on after that, we have Lamb of God. So we go on to like some hardcore bands here. We have Laid to Rest, Redneck, 2 great songs by them guys. And they end their set with Children of the Grave, which I honestly think that was my favorite Sabbath cover of the whole show right there. It kicked ass, good stuff. And they turned around and released their studio version of that cover the very next day after this concert. Real good stuff. Definitely recommend checking that out. So then we have the first supergroup. They call it the Premier Jam. So here we have a cover of Ultimate Sin, which was sung by Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm. So again, representing PA in that one. Real good cover there. And then we got Shot in the Dark, which was fronted by David Draiman of Disturbed. And also, he fronted Sweet Leaf. And then we have a cover of Changes, which was done by Youngblood. Which, this actual track right here had been released. So definitely check that out if you didn't see it live. So moving on, we have a little bit of 90s grunge here in the lineup. Alice in Chains, that's right. And despite losing 2 members, they're still going, they're still touring. So we start off with Man in the Box, Wood, and they end it with a cover of Fairies Wear Boots. So then after that we get Gojira, another hardcore band, more modern band. We start off with Stranded, we have Sevilla, we have Mea Culpa, and we end it with the cover of Under the Sun. So then we get a cool little drum off, it was basically a Symptom of the Universe cover. So here we get Nuno Betancourt, Ruby Sarzo, Travis Barker, Chad Smith, and Danny Carey involved in this drum off. And here we get a little bit, we got the Tool drummer here. We also get a little bit of a pop punk vibe here with Blink-182's drummer. So pretty cool. They're really covering like all of the subgenres that popped up over the years. So then we have a cover of Breaking the Law by Judas Priest, which Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins was in it. Tom Morello, he was involved. Tom Morello was mostly in this second supergroup here. Then we get Snowblind, which was also Billy Corgan. And then we get Flying High Again with Sammy Hagar. So there a little bit of 80s flavor there. And then we have Rock Candy, which is a Montrose cover with Sammy Hagar, because that's actually Sammy Hagar's first band from the 70s. So Montrose came out not too far behind Black Sabbath. Not as heavy or anything like that, but still cool stuff. And then we have Bark at the Moon, which was Papa V. Petrua. And then we have a cover of Train Kept A-Rollin', which Steven Tyler of Aerosmith and Ron Wood of Rolling Stones was involved in. And then, of course, Steven Tyler involved in Walk This Way, and then they cover Whole Lotta Love by Led Zeppelin. So, yeah, real cool stuff right there. So then, moving on from that, we have Pantera. That's right. Now, I actually got to see Pantera at Ozfest 2000, believe it or not. Back before we lost, Vinnie Paul and Dimebag. But here, Zakk Wylde took over for lead guitarist of Pantera and toured with them for the past couple of years. So here they got Cowboys from Hell, Walk, and then they did a cover of Planet Caravan, and they also did a cover of Electric Funeral, which both of their covers are available in studio versions. You can find Planet Caravan on their Far Beyond Driven album, and then you can find their Electric Funeral cover on the Nativity in Black 2 CD. So, moving on from that, we have Tool with 46 and 2, and then they cover Hand and Doom, and then they do Enema. And then, moving on to the next set, we have Slayer, another one of the big four. We got Disciple, War Ensemble, Wicked World, of course, Black Sabbath cover there. Then we have South of Heaven, Rain and Blood, and Angel of Death. And they really covered into their older 80s and the early 90s stuff right there. And then moving on, we got Guns N' Roses. That's right, Axl Rose taking the stage, and I feel like out of all the comments I was reading on this concert and everything, like, I feel like Axl got the most hate. So here we start off with It's Alright, which is actually a Sabbath cover, Never Say Die, and Junior's Eyes, along with Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. So all four of those Sabbath covers. And then we get the last two, Welcome to the Jungle and Paradise City. And then after that we get Metallica starting off with a cover of Hole in the Sky, which I've never heard Metallica cover that before, and I honestly expected them to cover Sabre Cadaver because that was pretty famous on their Garage Inc. album. But no, they decided not to cover that. So, first time I remember hearing Hole in the Sky, I heard it as a Pantera cover before I ever heard the original Sabbath version. And I thought Pantera did a pretty damn good cover of it, honestly. It'd be cool if Metallica would actually release their own studio version of this one. We'll see. So yeah, like I said, Hole in the Sky. Then we got Creeping Death, For Whom the Bell Tolls. Then they covered Johnny Blade by Black Sabbath. Then we have Battery and Master of Puppets. So, good short little set by them guys. And then we move on to the holy grail of the whole show. Very last performance of Ozzy Osbourne as a solo artist. And Zakk Wylde, he rejoins him for the last time in this set. So he starts off with I Don't Know, Mr. Crawley, we have Suicide Solution, and a very emotional performance of Mama I'm Coming Home. And he ends the solo set with Crazy Train. And yeah, I wanted to almost choke up whenever I saw him perform Mama I'm Coming Home. It's, yeah, last time he ever will do that. So then, moving on to the very last part of the show, we got the original Black Sabbath, with Bill Ward, Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi, and of course the man, Ozzy Osbourne himself, still in that throne. So, with them, we start off with War Pigs, NIB, we got Iron Man, and we end it with Paranoid. And I would have loved to have been at that show. I'm telling you, like, 40,000 people, sold out in like a day. And apparently there was like 3.5 million people that tuned into the pay-per-view, which I saw the whole show throughout the day it happened, but I didn't watch the live pay-per-view. I was basically like seeing snippets here and there on YouTube. Like, I saw the whole thing, basically piecing it together throughout the day, but I did actually get to catch Sabbath live. Some random crowd member was like live streaming it from 10 rows back. It's pretty badass, I thought. But yeah, back to the beginning. Great show. Would have loved to have been there. But yeah, that was my 4th of July weekend. Just, I was on call, hoping I didn't get called out. So I couldn't drink during the show, obviously, because I was on call at work. That always sucks. But there was speculation after this show that, you know, that Ozzy was going to do some more studio stuff. There was also speculation that the original Black Sabbath was maybe going to do a new studio album. But obviously all that's been out the window since 2 days ago when his passing got announced. Now Ozzy, to me, he was like he was one of those timeless icons to me. I mean, like, his music was around, like, especially his Sabbath stuff, his Sabbath music was around well before my time. And his solo career started well before I can remember. But I don't remember, like, the actual first time of hearing Ozzy. I bet it was probably on the radio or something. I know my dad had a couple of his Sabbath albums, and then he had No Rest for the Wicked on cassette tape. And people might call that, like, the worst album in the 80s that he did. But I liked it. I think it was very underrated. Although it wasn't really, like, that mainstream, and there was no ballads to it, but it was one of those albums that, it was one of the most metal albums he ever did in the 80s, I think. As far as all that goes. But how I found out about the news about his death, so it was 2 days ago. I was at work, and I had just finished up my last job for the day, and I get a text from my fiance telling me that Ozzy had passed away. And as soon as she texted that, I got on like the interwebs and the Facebooks, and sure enough, I mean, the feeds are blowing up about it. But I feel like he really went out on top. He sure did. And just the fact that he made this show, I just think he held on, and he just wanted to do that one last hurrah before his time was up, and he definitely accomplished it. I feel like he's definitely accomplished. So I'm really not surprised at all that we lost him shortly after this show. But I am certainly sad about it for sure. Because I've listened to his stuff, like, since I can remember. And he was basically around back when, like, he was around for the hair band era. He basically was around for, like, grunge. Like, and he was one of those surviving bands from the 80s that was still succeeding, you know, when grunge took over. And then even into the new metal era, he was still pretty relevant. To the point that, like, even when he started, like, his Ozfest festivals, when he started doing Ozfest, I think that really made new metal kind of take off a little bit back in the early 2000s. So he was definitely an influence on that for sure. So yeah, we had him across all the eras of rock, basically. And he's made many guest appearances on other bands' content, like, if you remember, like, Lita Ford, you know, the most popular one I'd say in the 80s, like Lita Ford and Ozzy, Close My Eyes Forever. And then in the 2000s, he did a couple that, I remember, like, him and Primus got together and did NIB for the Nativity and Black 2 album, most popular track off of that album. And then he got together with Cold Chamber and did Shock the Monkey, a Peter Gabriel cover. And he was also collaborating with Rob Zombie to do Ironhead. And then even, like, his newer albums, like, Ordinary Man was okay, but I think the Post Malone thing kind of killed it for me. But, I mean, you gotta admire, like, the fact that he'll collaborate with, like, just about any type of music, really. But whenever he did Patient Number 9, he had collaborated with, like many other different artists. Like, Tony Iommi joined him for a couple tracks on it, and one of the coolest tracks on Patient Number 9 was Eric Clapton's guitar work in the one track. Like, it blew my mind. But just the fact that he was sick these last 5 years and he was still putting out the content, you gotta admire that. Like, he really is the Iron Man. But yeah, so I totally had to redo this video since, you know, his death and everything. But yeah, what more can I say? Rest in peace, Ozzy, the Prince of Darkness. Oh, going back to the beginning, I forgot to mention about the video tributes they were doing. Like, Elton John did his congratulations along with Marilyn Manson, and then they also did a cool Randy Rhoads tribute as well. Which, you know, it's a shame that he passed away too, but love this guitar work. No disrespect to Zakk Wylde. He was really awesome too, but man, Randy Rhoads just killed it back then. It's a shame. It's sort of like, you know, what Cliff Burton was to Metallica, you know? You know, Ozzy's solo career was, like, very early on in their years, just like Metallica was with Cliff Burton. So it seems like a common story with a lot of these bands. And something else to mention about Back to the Beginning. Supposedly they may be releasing some of this show in theaters come 2026. So we'll have to see on that. I mean, I definitely go to the theater to see it, for sure. But yeah, what more can I say? I mean, Ozzy Osbourne was a fucking legend. No doubt about that. Unfortunately, his era came to an end, but any bands that come out in this day and age is a direct influence from him, for sure. So yeah, we miss you, Ozzy.